Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome all of you to the first official episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG. I'm your host, Edgar, and I'm very excited for today's first episode. Our first guest comes all the way from California. He's an ex member of the WMSCOG. I'm going to turn over the floor to you, Santi. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Santiago Hernandez. I am a former member of the World Mission Society Church of God. Um, and I grew up in Pacoima, California.
Okay. Yeah, so Cali, man, how's everything going over there with the fires, man?
It's calm now, but a couple weeks ago, it was crazy. A lot of places were burning down, and um, we had no power. People were going crazy, but everything now is good now. Everything's nice and calm where it should be.
That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Yeah, Cali's beautiful, man. Got to go out there sometime. So,
Yeah, you got to come out
um,
here, man.
yeah, bro,
Yeah, you have to.
we're actually planning on it, right? So,
Yeah, we're
uh,
doing a little. Yeah, we're planning something. Hopefully, yeah, everything turns out right, and then you come down here, man. Take you on a little cruise down PCH and see a couple places, man. You got to see,
look,
yeah, for sure.
yes, sir. Looking forward to it, man. So
Yeah.
let's introduce the people to a little bit about your story, man. How did you get involved with the WMSCOG? How long were you a member for as well?
Yeah. So, the way I got introduced to WMSCOG, was at my job. Back in November, December 2017 was when I first met uh, who would eventually be my branch. Right now, he's a current title holder. He's actually a missionary. Um, Back in 2017, he came into the store, and I had recognized him because he had actually preached to me. Um, Maybe a couple months back at a junior college because I was attending junior college and I was also working, so he happened to walk in there, and I recognized him. Eventually, he asked me for an application. I gave it to my boss, and he started working with me. But that was where I was introduced to the cult, and also I was a member for about 7 years. Yeah, about
7 years.
7 years. Yeah,
Okay. So you got introduced to it at work.
yeah, it
Okay.
worked.
So
Yeah.
how did he approach you with that?
So the way he approached me with that was when he came in, right? He got a job application. He started working with me, and after he got a job, like maybe five or six other people came in to work with us. I just thought they were regular people who got hired, but little did I know these were actually members from the church. So we had
Uh,
like about five or six members working with us, and yeah, and then little by little they started inviting me to the church. They were telling me, "Hey, would you like to go for a Bible study?" And at that time, I remember I'm like, "No, I have a close relationship with God. Like, I don't really want to go to a church, or I don't really want to go to a certain place to worship God. I feel like I can worship God on my own."
right.
So they eventually I did come to the church, and I was brought to the church by so the way it works in the church is that whoever brings you, introduces you to the church, and you get baptized is basically like your branch. They call it your branch. So
Yeah.
who would become my official branch is a brother who is still a current member. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but his name is actually, we're gonna call him Eddie. So Eddie introduced me. He brought me. He officially brought me, and that's when I started studying. I had having a Bible study, but at first they didn't tell me about like no heavenly mother. They
Right.
first brought me
Right.
as like uh it's funny because the first time that he invited me to the church, Eddie, it was like around 9 or 10 p.m. And I was kind of weirded out by it because he's like, come over at 9, 10 p.m. It was on a Friday. So Fridays, the way it works is that Fridays at the cult is actually preparation day. So
Right.
members are there late, 9, 10, 11, 12, up to like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. At least in Sunland, where I was at, they're there very late. So when he invited me, I was kind of weirded out by it. I'm like, what is he trying to do, man? But
Yeah.
no, he had nothing but good intentions. He had nothing but the right intentions to try to come and bring me to the church. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
how I came about being uh part of being a member.
Okay.
Eventually I would study. I was a little hesitant, but then eventually after maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I eventually did get baptized. I think on the third day, it was January 28th, 2017. I don't know if that's correct, might be off, but I think that's the date, January 28th, 2017. Yeah.
Okay. So that's when you can remember kind of becoming an
Yeah.
official member. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy though, man,
Yeah.
that it was a lot of them that got hired onto your workplace.
Yeah.
How did they get hired on like that? You know, if you were there before them, that who hired them?
That's the thing. When my branch came in, we're gonna call him missionary. We're gonna call him missionary T. All right,
Okay.
I'm gonna put his name out there, missionary T. When missionary T came in, I think everybody in the church has an amazing work ethic. A
Yeah.
lot of members, like, they really strive to be really good employees. And then behind that, like, a lot of people who don't know about this code is actually, they say that when you carry out good actions or you have good morals and you show that outside of the church, it makes people want to come to the church.
Right.
It makes people want to come. So uh missionary T, when he came in and he started working, he was just a very diligent employee.
Yeah.
And our boss at that time, um he loved him, man. He's like, man, this guy's so diligent, he's always on time. So the thing is, he told the boss, he's like, hey, I got more people, man, who want to work. And he's
Mm.
like, yeah, bring him in, bring him in. He's like, but it's one thing that got me mad. I remember before I even came into the church was
Yeah.
that they got Saturday off.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, because I told my
Yeah.
boss, I'm like, hey, man, I've been working here for years and I don't even have the weekends off. These guys get hired and they have Saturday off, like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
And so eventually, yeah, a lot of them came in and they began to get hired one by one. And as I began to work with all of them, they're very sweet people. They're very kind. They're very oh man, they're very loving, and they're very caring, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, our boss was like, man, if you got more, bring more. At a certain time, even after I joined, I think we had maybe about 10 or 12 employees from the church working at
Really.
that. Yeah, working for this.
Yeah. So it was inevitable then,
Yeah.
that eventually they were gonna get you in there, man. And it's fascinating that you say that how everything worked out for you. Because I have the similar experiences in the church. Me myself being an ex member, like there's so many loving people in there, man. There's
Mhm.
genuine good people in
Yeah,
there, and so
absolutely.
we're not here to to bag on
Mhm.
the people that's on the inside. Obviously,
Mhm.
you're gonna have your exceptions, and there's so many awful things that take place in the church, but I never blame the people. I blame the top of the organization, the leaders, the founders. And we can get into that a little bit later on, but
Mhm.
yeah, man. So while you were a member there, what were some of the things what was your experience like in the WMSCOG?
Yeah. So my experience there, man, it was very good, man. It was very beautiful, you know. But just like anything, there has to be the good and the bad. Like the Church of God always likes to say, bad and evil have to coexist in the world, right? They preach that a lot. So
Yeah.
in the very same way, right, this church, it has a lot of good, but it also has a lot of evil. So my experience in the church was, back in 2017. I began to take my first little steps. I began to attend a Sabbath, a third day. By the end of 2017, I became a fully active member, and I was preaching all the time. I was keeping the full Sabbath, and then I began to tithe. I began to follow as what they call the order of Melchizedek. which
Yeah.
is I begin to tithe, I begin to keep certain amount of services, I begin to participate in certain amount of things. Um, the end of 2017, I was already fully involved, and by the time 2018 came, um, I was gone. Like I was gone, and but I mean what I mean by gone is that this church is like no other, man. It is a place that separates you from your family. It is a place that separates you from the world. It is a place that separates you from reality. You know,
Yeah.
and I'll explain a little bit about that because I'm actually a federal employee. I'm not a police officer, but I work for the police department. And due to the nature of my job and me getting hired, because the past 7 years I have worked all these like, cheap jobs, and I have been far away from like the actual world, that when I was interviewed and going through the whole hiring process and background process, um, they wanted references.
Right.
See, the bad thing about that is that all of the people that I knew, right, they were in the cult.
Yeah.
And the good relationships that I had with people on the outside, I didn't want to tell, my closest friend or my cousin, like, hey, I need a reference, because I had pushed them all away.
Right.
I had pushed everyone away. I had pushed, man, like, I pushed my mother away. I pushed my dad away. I pushed my best friend, Giovanni, Leo, Irving, like the closest people to me, like, I pushed them away.
Yeah.
Not because they're bad people. They're amazing. They're very beautiful people. But because when you come into this cult, you know, they say that if you don't believe, or you don't want to believe in what they believe, their doctrine, that you're from Satan.
Yeah.
People even betray their own family members, like their own children. Like, there's people out there who uh are like in their late 30s and 40s, and they have kids who are like 19, 20, and they don't want to come to the cult. They say, hey man, whatever, screw you. Like, he's going to hell, because they
Right.
they kind of bring into your mind, they like inject it in your brain that when you get to heaven and you die, you're not gonna remember, and that when you get there, you don't know who's your real brother and who's your real sister.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings you a little comfort. You go, and it's weird, man, because like, I would come home and I'm like, man, my mom doesn't want to go to the church, but what if she's not my actual sister?
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me peace of mind. But now that I'm out of the cult, I was like, man, those are 7 years that I'm never gonna get back to spend with my mom.
Yeah.
And for the people who are watching, and the people who are not in the cult and who have been preached to, um um be very careful, man. Do your research. So then 2018 comes. I would say like the spring. um i'm I'm starting to keep all the that's the thing, man. When you come into the cult, they tell you, you would you like to be saved? And then you're like, yeah, how am I saved? So they tell you, well, in order for you to receive eternal life, this is before they even told me about Heavenly Mother. I don't think they even told me about Heavenly Mother. I got baptized January 2017. They didn't even tell me about Heavenly Mother till like a couple months after. Um, they told me at first, in order for you to
Yeah.
receive salvation, eternal life, you gotta keep the Passover. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I keep the? I want to keep this Passover, man. I want to receive eternal life. Yeah, let's do it, man. I mean, all our lives we've been kind of we've had this. I mean, at least myself, right? I've had this thing in my head where I would love to explore the Bible. I don't know nothing about the Bible, so I would love to. And here are these people who are my age. They're very welcoming, very comforting, and they want to teach me the Bible. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's keep the Passover. How do I do it? So
Yeah.
I
For
remember I was so
sure.
excited to keep the Passover that I told my branch, because I have three branches. I have Brother Eddie, I have Missionary T, and then I have, we're gonna call him Deacon Miguel.
Okay.
to not put his name out there. So I told Deacon Miguel one time, because at a certain point he was also working with us. I told him, man, baptize me back here in the back room, in the storage room of the 7-Eleven, man. Like, baptize me in here. Like, let's do
Yeah.
it, man. I want to receive the Passover.
Yeah.
And he's like, you want to do it, man? I call my overseer right now. We'll do it right now. And I'm like, nah, we'll wait till I get to church, man. You know.
Yeah.
So I was baptized eventually on a third day, January 28th, 2017. But they
Okay.
tell you that keep the
Yeah.
Passover and you'll receive eternal life.
Yeah.
But here's the catch, man. You come, keep the Passover, and then they're like, well, now you gotta keep third day. Now you kept third day. Now you gotta keep the whole Sabbath. It's not like one service or two service. Now you gotta be there. Depending on the season, you gotta be there before 9 a.m. all the way to 9 p.m., 9:30, 10. The
Yeah.
whole Sabbath. I'm like, the whole Sabbath. I'm like, man, that's kind of a drag. But hey, man,
Right.
for eternal life, man, one day out of the week I'm here at church, man. That's nothing about compared to what I owe God. You
Right.
know. So uh
Not to cut you off, but
yeah.
I like to get in on there a little bit. It's so true what you say, man. You come in, you're so eager, right? I'm sure that when you were working, the reason why you wanted to get baptized is because you were guilt tripped into believing, unless you keep this Passover, you cannot be saved. And the way that they word it when they're preaching this to you, it's like an ultimatum. It's not like do this out of your own free will. It's if you
um,
don't do this, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you're going to hell. And so,
yeah.
they tell you the whole pre-existence thing that's a stolen doctrine, but that's another video in itself,
Yeah.
right? And so they make you feel that the only way to get back to heaven, where you originally got kicked out from, is by
Mhm.
keeping this Passover. And they tell you once you keep it, you're good. So of course,
Mhm.
just like you and me and almost everyone else that I know, we can relate. Like, you want to keep it essentially because you're like, man, if this is what I got to do, if this is my golden ticket, then I'm good. I get to go to heaven after this. But it's what comes after that's shocking.
Mhm.
And that's what you were kind of touching on. It's almost like if they, once you keep the Passover, right after that, it's like, surprise, it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It's so many rules, regulations, and I can already tell that the members, watching this, they're gonna automatically think, oh, well, why are you complaining about what the Bible teaches? These are all biblical commands. But that's the thing. Those are biblical commands that were taught in the Old Testament time. These are not things that Christians are bound by in the New Testament time. So whether
Mhm.
you're a Christian or not a Christian, you can answer the WMSCOG very easily and say, the things that you guys require are not things that are required in the scripture in the New Testament time. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But again, it just goes to show you how how deceitful they are at the beginning by telling members that this is all you got to do to be saved, and then later you're
Mhm.
actually more like a hamster running on a wheel
Yeah.
chasing the bait that's
Yeah.
designed for you to never obtain. You know what I mean? Because let me ask
Exactly.
you let me ask you this, Santi. This is a question I've always wanted to ask. Once you kept the Passover, and once they hit you with well, you got to keep the Sabbath, and then you got to keep the full Sabbath, because God didn't say keep the Sabbath hour, he said keep the Sabbath day. And then after that, you got to tithe, and third day, and the feast, and blah, 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 preaching festivals, and all this and all that. After doing all that, did you still feel peace? Did you ever obtain that peace, or was it never there?
Mm. You know what? I felt peace. Um, I felt peace the last year I was there, which was in
Okay.
2024. That's when I felt peace. But as soon as I found out that not only did I have to keep the Passover, but now I got to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now I got to keep Resurrection Day. Now I got to keep this feast, and then I got to keep that feast, and I got to keep this feast and that feast, and left and right and up and down and
Yeah.
360. That's when I felt like, man, this is a drag. This is more like a chore, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, you know, people who are watching and people who have never been part of this cult is that what happens is that they lead you into this nice beautiful door, but what happens when you walk past that door, they shut the door behind you,
Yeah.
and now you're stuck, and now you're scared, like you're scared to ask questions, like because a lot of us are like, when I came in, I had no knowledge of the Bible. So now that I'm in here and these people are teaching me, who am I to go up against them? They're showing, like they say, we're gonna use strictly the Bible. We're gonna go based off the Bible 100%. So I invite those people out there who are current members, who are watching, those from Sunland, those from Reseda, those people who from Riverside, those people who are around the surrounding areas in the big churches. The first time that I ever started to doubt about this cult, the first time that I ever doubted was when I began to read the Bible. Because in the cult, we're um we're told not to read the Bible on our own, many times. Some people say it. That's the thing. I will say this. A lot of churches are very different. They're very unique. No matter where you go, whether you're in California, you're in Florida, you're in New York, you're in Washington, a lot of members are gonna have different experiences.
Right.
Depending on who the overseer is, sometimes the overseer is very, very chill, he's very nonchalant, he's very kicked back, or they could be very strict. But a lot of times I was told not to read the Bible. Because if I read the Bible, then I'm gonna interpret the Bible on my own.
Right.
Even by reading the first book of the Bible, Matthew, just read chapters 1 through like 13, and you're going to come to understand that this church is not the church that Christ established. It
Yeah.
is not the church that Christ established. If we want to speak biblically, we want to go on. That's the thing. We can't. They're such manipulators that they twist the word of God so bad that
Yeah.
when you're in there, sometimes you don't even know who you are. You're a
Yeah.
robot.
Yeah.
You're very robotic. You're very you begin to talk like them. You begin to act like them. You're just a whole different person, man. Like it's just it's very, man, it's very interesting what they do to people, man. How they manipulate people, how they take advantage of people, man. And that's the thing that also gets to me too, because I myself am of Mexican background, and growing up in my home, I was never shown a lot of love physically, right? I was never told, like, by my mom or dad, like, I love you. I think I've heard my mom say I love you maybe like once in her lifetime. She wasn't the person to tell me, she was more the person to show me, right? To,
Yeah.
to really show me by her actions. So when you're in the church, when you come in, they love bomb you so good that you're
Yeah.
like, man, this is the love that I've been missing all my life, you
Yeah.
know, and it makes you dive even deeper. But what you don't know, man, is that you're going into a place that man, it's of no return. I would say, like, if someone asked me, what do you think of the mindset that members have in there, like what kind of how do they think or how do they function? If someone were to ask me about the members, I were to compare them as a person who's addicted to drugs. Because a
Yeah.
person who's addicted to drugs, if you tell them that they're addicted or they're wrong, they're not gonna know that. A person who's addicted to a certain drug, like they don't want to quit. you know and that's the
Yeah.
thing. When you tell someone, the WMSCG, that they're wrong, they think you're crazy. They
Yeah.
think that you're wrong, you're Satan, you're the one. But no, man, that's why I invite you guys, read the Bible and wake up, man. Like, wake up, because the church is, man, it's not the church that Christ established. Man, I'm
Yeah.
telling you,
Th-
read the first couple chapters, and God, you will begin to understand and see for yourselves.
Yeah, man. That's good. I believe that you hit the nail on the head. The love bombing. It feels so good, especially when you're not used to that. Your whole life, and you walk in there, and man, the love bombing is outrageous, bro. Like they make you feel so welcomed. You know what I mean? And we've heard this, over and over. So many stories of how much love you feel when you first come in, but it's where does that love go afterwards once they
Yeah.
reel you in. The love stops. And
Yeah.
it's so crazy, man, because it's like a toxic relationship. Like, once that love is gone, man, like now that I've been out and I've been talking to members like for the last 4 years, wow, like all I can say is like all the members from all over the world. I've talked to members in South America, in Europe, everywhere. And the one thing that always stands out is like when they leave that place, and this is myself included. Like, man, you leave with lingering effects, man, from there. Like some people deal with insomnia, depression, anxiety. It's rough because that they take that love from you, and then they fill that gap with fear. It's really like a toxic relationship. That love, you crave to feel that love still, but that love was under a condition that you do what they ask you to do. Once you're no longer a member, man, they take it all from you, right? And so members leave when if members that escape, when they finally leave, they're some feel depressed, alone, and some deal with so many different issues, but it's all caused, in my opinion, because of the World Mission Society, the way
Mhm.
that they operate, their doctrine. And it's sad, but also it's very insightful to know that it's not just one person. It's not
Mhm.
just back in the day when one person would speak out, it was easy to cover it all up. But now I'm seeing so many people coming out and speaking out that there's no way that they can say everyone is crazy. If
Mhm.
everyone is having the same experiences, then that shit is leading. It's supposed to lead you into understand what is really going on here. Take a closer look, because all these people can't have the same experiences and be wrong. Are all of them wrong? Are all of them crazy? Because when they were members, they weren't looked at like that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's also sad when you think of the members that are currently still inside the church. And
Mhm.
maybe you can speak to this, something like, when you were there, you said that during the time that you were there, you started getting a little burned out with all the stuff that was going on. you know would you say that you felt like yourself, or would you say that you would have to put on like a facade, like a face, like smile through the pain? Because we're told always smile, right? The 144,000 are children of laughter, like
Mhm.
Isaac, right? And so speak to us a little bit about that. Could you ever feel like you could express that you were sad, that you were anxious, that you were going through things in the World Mission Society Church of God?
Yes, most definitely, man. Towards the middle of my life of faith, I knew that I had to put on a front, because I had the fear of, if I doubt, or, as you get older into your life of faith, when you begin to ask questions, they begin to say, "Oh, Edgar's asking questions. He's doubting now." You know, people begin to doubt. They can't go to heaven anymore. And we're told that. And for sure, I they say, if you have depression, mother says that's a sin. Depression
Man,
could lead you to go to hell. So you can't be too happy, you can't be too sad, you can't be too angry. You got to be just a robot, man. you know a
yeah,
robot person who doesn't have emotions, a person who doesn't just have no feelings. And I began to experience that, because when I came into the call, I was 22 and a half.
yeah,
Right now I'm 30. So I spent my 23rd birthday in there, and then I spent my 29th birthday in there. um But I began to in towards the middle, I began to think, am I going to be in here forever? Is this going to be my whole life? And that's the thing, man. Time stops for nobody. The world stops for nobody. You know, and I began to see people around me graduate college, get their degrees, people get good careers. And I began to think to myself, yeah, I mean, because they brainwash you so good that they make you think, well, nothing in the world matters. Like everything
Yeah.
eventually will burn. Everything eventually will go away. But they false predicted, in the
Yeah.
1980s that the world was gonna end.
Yeah.
2012 that the world was gonna end. 2015,
Yeah.
2018, on San Holmes' 100th birthday, like, you
Constantly.
constantly you get to the point where I got to the point in my life of faith where I was like, man, I'm just going in circles, man.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I would, depending where you are, like I said, everybody has different experience, but we would get to church, 7 o'clock, eat dinner, and we'd go preach every evening. If it wasn't a Tuesday, which they call third day, or Saturday, but we'd preach every single day in the evening. Sometimes I'd go out and preach, and I'd get contacts, and I would be like, man, I hope they don't come.
Yeah.
Like I hope they don't come. Like I just met a poor little innocent family. I knocked on their door, and I'm like, I pray that they don't come. And it's
Yeah.
true. A lot of people got baptized out of my contacts, a lot of the fruits that I had. Fruits, for those who are not familiar with the church, fruits are people that you preach to, and then they eventually come to the church to get baptized.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, man, I pray that they don't come. I pray that they really don't come here because, man, even my best friend, even one of my best friends, his name his name is Irving. Um, I remember one night we were hanging out, Um, this is towards the middle of my life of faith where I kind of started like, just started going left and right, not really, you know, I was firm. I was firm. I will say that. I will say that from the time I got baptized all the way to the day I left, March 2nd, I never missed a single service. Like I
Yeah.
never missed a single service, like not one single service. I might have been
Yeah.
late by a minute or something. Something might have happened, but I never missed a single service. But I was hanging out with my best friend, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm looking into baptizing my son." And I'm like, "Don't come to my church, bro." I'm like, "You don't want to be part of this. Like,
Yeah.
being part of this, I would say an organization that I'm part of, you don't want to come here, bro." He's like, "Why not? Like, I see you so involved in the church. You feel like." I'm like, "Bro, it's hell here, man. It's like he's one of the first people that I told like this church is like the worst." But I definitely did experience it because I noticed that people were getting ahead in life,
Yeah.
and it's one thing that the church never likes to admit and say, like, that these people are doing good. They hate to see you doing good,
Yeah.
but yet they want to preach to people who are lawyers. Yet they want to
Yeah.
preach to people who are doctors. Yet they
Yeah.
want to preach to people who are important. That's why they're so involved. They want to get involved, in politics. That's why they have a chair in the what do you call it?
The UN.
The UN, right? The Bible tells us to not get involved in public affairs. So
Yeah.
why do they have a chair in the UN? Why do these people want to get involved? You know, it's all facade, man. It's all fake. It's all like it's just
Yeah.
it's not correct.
Yeah, man. I think it's very fascinating. Like, even you mentioned about preaching to your friends
Mm.
and deep that, like, one part of you, the indoctrinated part, wants to bring them, but the
Yeah.
real you is fighting, and it's like, no, man, you know what you're gonna get them into.
Mhm.
And it's so cool that you brought that up, because I had a similar experience with one of my friends I actually work with. His name is Rogelio, and
Yeah.
shout out to my boy Rogelio. I'm actually gonna bring him on. He's agreed to do an interview sometime in the future, and it's interesting because I brought him to one service, and even though he was never a member, I want to bring in different, like different points of views and different interactions that people had with this cult. And one of them is one of my good friends, like I was saying, Rogelio. He experienced the cult in one service, and that service was enough for him to be like, man, this place is so judgmental, so crazy. And I remember, when I was sitting with him in service, I was like, man, I don't want him to be a member. Like, literally, the first service he comes into, they're judging him about, a cross is an idol, because to the World Mission Society and other cults like it, some of them, they believe that the cross is an idol. And
Mhm.
he was wearing a cross, and I could just imagine what was going on in his head when he's hearing the preacher delivering the sermon, talking about, those who have crosses are going to hell. And he's just, right off the back, they just make you feel so uncomfortable, so guilty. And I remember, like, just thinking to myself, like, man, I don't for the first time, I don't want this guy to go through this, because I saw how all of them changed. I saw how I myself changed. Like you were speaking about it earlier, like, we're a shell of our former selves. You know what I mean? Like, I never felt like the real Edgar when I was inside the cult. I didn't. I felt a false sense of peace. When I was in there, when you would keep the feast, but then, like, right after the feast were over, because you're living your life, you sin, and because you have to wait for the next year to come. You don't, in order to keep another festival, you don't
Mhm.
have that piece. It's a superficial piece, you know what I mean? It's like a hamster chasing the wheel, and you don't
Mhm.
want that for your friends. You don't want that for your loved ones. I saw how my family was, when they were in the church, and like, you're constantly being guilt tripped, and you're so fearful of, doing anything, like, for instance, you cannot prepare for the future. That's
Mhm.
one big thing that World Mission Society, in my opinion, does a very good job on, making you focus on the present, and they're kind of like, forget your future, right? And so that's why you hear so many stories of members who left college, who left careers, who had maybe a bright future in sports. I know a lot of members that could have made the NFL, and they all left it because we thought we were going to heaven, right? And
Mhm.
so it's so sad to see people being reduced to a shell of their former selves. And then, once members finally get to leave, you're literally playing catch up. You know what I mean? Like, you're just trying to catch up with everyone else, kind of like how you said, you saw your friends getting houses, starting families, getting careers, and then you have the members of these kind of places who have none of that, and who all of our chips are like on the WMSCOG. We have nothing to show for all our time there,
Mhm.
and I think it's so sad. But yeah, I just thought that was a very good point that you brought up. And I also want to ask you something, since we're on the subject, like, of your experience in the WMSCOG. What are maybe some of the stories, some of the crazy stories that you might have witnessed, or something worth mentioning, like maybe of some of the stuff that goes on there?
Yeah. So my story is a little long, and I don't want to get too much into every single minute or every single detail that I did witness. Of my life, my personal life, but things that I did witness in the church, that were pretty bad. I would say, in 2018, towards to summer 2018, I was actually um asked to be married. Um, so I married a sister in the church. I don't know if she's no. I don't know because I don't speak to no members, but I don't know if she's still there. But at that time, when I was still in the cult, she had left. So I married the sister, um, who unfortunately happened to be bisexual. She happened to be bisexual, and the church actually knew, because when she came into the church, she actually came in with her girlfriend. So the overseer knew that that was her girlfriend. Leaders knew that was her girlfriend, but she came in before me. She came in like 2014 or 15. I don't know when she came in, but I know she was bisexual because she herself told me that. When we were dating, I mean, we only had two dates. And for those of you wondering out there, does the World Mission Society Church of God do arranged marriages? Absolutely, they do. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, they do. And they also do fraud marriages. Right?
Yeah.
Fraud marriages, they bring members who are American citizens of in America. They bring them with Korean members from members from Korea, and they marry them, for the sole basis of getting a green card. And because I myself went through the green card process. Now I'm a citizen. Because of my job, I was able to expedite my citizenship. But now that I'm a citizen, I went through the whole green card process, and the green card process is very complex. It's not easy. It's expensive, and you have to have a lot of details about your marriage. But they're so good at that, man. Like I don't know how members could gather details, gather information in just one whole year to be able to get married to an American citizen member and then get
Yeah.
their green card. They do it. It exists in the church. It does exist. So I was actually asked to be married. I'm not gonna say that I myself was like deceived, but I did happen to find that sister attractive. So when the overseer asked me at that time is if there's a sister that I liked, I told him yeah, and I'll explain that maybe for another day. But the way that I got married was very unique. It was very. I mean, it wasn't beautiful, but it was it was very unique. Um,
Yeah.
and I happened to be sent out. We're in Sunland, and I happened to be sent out to Modesto, California. So in Modesto, the goal was to establish a house church, and the house church, it was established. I was not going to be the branch manager, or I didn't think of myself as a branch manager, because when I was sent out in 2018, um I wasn't even I was man I hadn't even finished course one.
Yeah.
Like I barely knew like how to preach the savior of each age, pass over the way to eternal life, the tree of life, which are subjects that are part of course one. I barely even knew how to preach them.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to. I didn't even know like the Ten Commandments when I got sent out. So I was sent out for the sole purpose to be able to help financially.
Mm.
To help the church. So what I did was I gathered like $8,000. And we were sent out to Modesto, me and my former wife. And while I was out there, man, every single day of my life was hell. Every single day of my life was hell. It was either dealing with her, or dealing with my life of faith out there, because when you get sent out, man, it is not easy. For those of you who are watching, who are parents, and you have children who are in the church and they're sent out, I guarantee you the life is not easy, man. It's not a walk in the park. It is very difficult. Um, I got when I came back from Modesto eventually, um, I was in debt with like more than $25,000. And
Yeah.
and 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 it was bad because when we had short terms over there to Modesto, um, actually my former wife, I'll say this, she stole money from the church, without me knowing. I found out later because the overseer, he came and told me about it. He's like, there's certain times where I sent you guys money for certain bills, and certain bills weren't being paid, because everything that happened, everything that happens when you establish a house church, 9 times out of 10, that money has to come out of your pocket. So that money
Yeah.
was coming out
And
of my pocket.
I don't mean to cut you off, bro. I definitely want you to continue with that story, but I do want to highlight how you mentioned, because I think this is a very important point for the audience to hear. And like you said, like if there's parents watching, like
Mm-hmm.
you witnessed it, so it's not your opinion. You lived it. You
Mm-hmm.
were literally sent out, right, as a member who might have not had all of his studies under his belt, but you were sent out. You understood the sole purpose was to support them financially.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't they support, right, themselves? That there is a multi-million-dollar,
Mm-hmm.
place, allegedly, that that this is what we've seen, and it's common knowledge, amongst the members, right? So if they have all this money, all the tithe and offering, you would think that that would be enough to help sustain a church, but no. They want that for themselves, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's the members' responsibility. It's your faith. You have to maintain it. You have to work yourself to the bone in order to maintain this place. And I think that just shows you a lot about the inside workings of the WMSCOG. But please continue with your story.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because even after every single service, right? There's opening prayer and there's a closing prayer. In between there's a lot of steps to how members keep service, but at the end, when the conclusion, when the service is about to end, they're about to conclude. Someone comes up and does a prayer. So in that prayer, people also pray for the tithes and offerings. They pray that the tithes and offerings may be able to be used to establish churches all around the world. Where does that money go? Man, that's beyond me. But I invite you guys also to explore for yourselves. There is actually I will give them a shout out. I hope that's okay with you. The Playing in Traffic podcast,
Yeah.
Tony and Lindsay. There is a girl by the name of Maria who makes actually a podcast on there, and she goes into details on actually where the money goes. So go and see that for yourselves. I think she might be a former leader. I don't know what kind of, if she had a title or not, but I remember hearing in that podcast she does explain exactly, because she used to count the money, she used to input the money. But yes, like you mentioned, if there's we want to fix the sanctuary for the kids, brothers, we need offering. If we want to fix the kitchen, oh brothers, we need offering. And free labor. People are getting exploited. People are charging, they're not charging anything. I know members who are electricians, they knew how to do construction, drywall. They're in there giving their free time, their materials, like when they wanted to put a new floor in a room. All brothers, we need offering, because we need to beautify, mother's, holy sanctuary. We need to beautify Zion, and it can't happen if. But what happens to our tithes and offerings?
Right.
They get exceptions, the exemptions, from electricity, from water. They get exemptions. But what happens to our money? I will allow you guys, so you guys can go out there and do the research. But as for myself, where does the money go? I don't know, because it didn't come to me when I was struggling in Modesto. And I'll tell you a very sad story, man. I remember one time, I can't remember the grocery store's name, but it's um a grocery outlet, grocery outlet, grocery outlet bargain market, right by where the church that where myself and my former wife went to be sent out at. There was a grocery outlet. I remember one time, Edgar, we had like $50 to our name.
Yeah.
We didn't even have gas. We didn't even have. We literally had $50, and there was a short term coming. We had to buy eggs, milk, food, dinner. Man, I don't know how we made those $50 stretch, but we
Yeah.
made those. We like, man, God, Jesus Christ did a miracle for us, man. Cause
Yeah.
cause cause when we left the store, we literally had maybe like $2 in our pockets. Me and my
Yeah.
former wife, and they didn't send us money to buy groceries. They didn't, and it didn't happen once or twice. It happened many times. you know,
Yeah.
because they were trying to grow the church out there. So they kept coming like every month. They did short terms. A lot of that stuff came out of our pockets, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of that money, out of my pocket, man, because it got to a point where my former wife, she quit her job. She left.
Yeah.
She left. She left the church. While I was over there in 2000, when I got sent out there in 2018, we stayed there off 2019. The beginning of COVID 2020, she got up the first week of 2020. She got her stuff and she left.
Yeah.
You know, and she just one day to the other. That's the thing. I would tell you guys, if if you have a family in the cult, like if your whole family's in it, and you present good tithes and good offerings, the church will allow you to do whatever you want. You can miss a service, you can be late, you can go on vacation, you can do this, you can do that, because when you go on vacation while you're in the church, it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
Edgar has a family emergency in California because his family member died. Oh no, that brother wants to go have fun. He's probably at Universal Studios. He's probably at
Yeah.
Disneyland. No, brother Edgar, you can't go, brother. You have to. They don't tell you can't go. They just tell you like, man, brother, like you don't have the faith to keep service here. But if Edgar was donating hundreds of thousands of dollars, oh, brother Edgar, go ahead, brother. Go keep service over there. Like that's totally fine. They make exceptions. They break the laws and they break the rules, and whenever they want to, But
Yeah.
when you have a family emergency or when you have something going on, they don't break the rules for you. So yeah, that time, many times, we were left with like no. I remember one time, we had a short term in Modesto, and I literally had like I think like $3 in my bank account, maybe two and a half, and it was lunchtime, and the overseer was like, "Brothers, I want you guys to get lunch on your own." Man, I had maybe a quarter of a tank of gas, and I remember having to go to Wendy's, and I mean, you can't buy nothing with $3 at Wendy's, like everything there is
Yeah.
like $12, $13. And I remember like I remember telling the brothers that I had to take a phone call. I was like, brothers, I gotta take a phone call. It's a very important phone call from a contact. Man, I did not have no money. I did not have money to eat.
Yeah.
I'm a heavy set guy, and ever since I was in the church, I've always been a heavy set guy. People who know me are gonna say, "Oh, that brother was starving." I was starving, but I was eating really bad junk food, man. But that time, remember, I didn't have no money at all. It
Yeah.
was either
No,
I
man.
eat.
I can relate to that, brother. Like, I know that firsthand. I've heard dozens of stories, and I include myself in that, man. Like, you have no money when you're in there to take care of barely take care of yourself. There was a point of time in 2015 when I was asked to quit my job and to move into the church. And during that time in 2015, when they told me to quit my job, I had a talk with missionary Michael, and he explained to me, because I was worried. I was like, well, you want me to quit my job, but how am I supposed to take care of my family? Because it was me, my wife, and my son. And he says to me, oh, the church is going to take care of you financially. This is a great blessing. You've been purchased by God. According to the revelation, you were purchased with the blood of Christ, which is not what that means. But of course, they twist the scripture,
Mm.
right? And so the deal was they were going to pay me $300 a month,
Oh
right? For
man.
me, my wife, and my son to maintain ourselves, right? In the real world. And that is like, how can you make $300 stretch a month? First of all, you have to tithe out of that, so that's already $30 gone. Then you got to offer, right? So do the math. Let's say you do $20, and then between you, your wife, and your son, and then on top of that, we had a phone bill, right? Me and my wives, that's $120 a month, right? So plus food and gas, right? And whatever my son needs. So just imagine, like, I mean, I can understand 100%. They leave us with nothing, and 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 then even when you don't have, when you have nothing, and you have to, you like you said, you have to buy cheap food or snacks to maintain yourself, right? And you have, the worst of the worst, and then you still get rebuked for it sometimes, right? Oh, you brother, you don't know how to manage your physical life well. You don't know how to physically do, there's some members who have good professions in there, and that's good, right? But unfortunately, there's a lot of members who had to leave school, right, or lose jobs because you go through multiple jobs while being in that place because of the feast or the Sabbath. And so not everyone, has it good. And those
Mhm.
members who are struggling, like it's so sad because I remember being one of those members and barely being able to stay afloat. But you have to, you cannot miss your tithing and offering. When taxes come, they make sure to, get in a few sermons on the Sabbath about the blessing of tithe. Like constantly, you're just giving and giving
Mhm.
and giving, and until you have nothing left, man. And really, it's sad because like what it does for you, does to you financially, and if you're able to escape once you leave, you're just left picking up the pieces. But
Yeah.
Santi, I wanna get into a little bit now about like so what were the things that finally led to your departure? If you want to still talk, finish up your point of what you were bringing up before that, but then kind of lead us into what were the things that made you start realizing that the World Mission Society weren't who they claimed to be.
Yeah. So this happened was when I came back from Modesto. Eventually I was out there for a whole year by myself. 2020, I was out there a whole year by myself. I was working two jobs. There's one thing that did happen in the. There's several things. Like I said, I can go on forever. I have so many stories that I want to put out there. Like I said, maybe we could do it at a different
A part
time.
two, yeah.
Part two, definitely. But let me mention one that was very important. There was a brother in 2021. I was part of Pasadena Zion in Pasadena, California. Pasadena Zion happens to be a branch of Sunland. That is southeast of Sunland, about maybe 8 or 9 miles. Um, and I went to Pasadena because I didn't want to. I at that time I had gotten divorced from my former wife, so I went there. I was there for a little bit, and then I eventually went back to Sunland. But when I came back home at the end of 2021, we happened to have a new overseer, who is no longer in the church anymore. He's actually expelled from the church. His name was Elder Choi. So Elder Choi happened to be a brother in Sunland a long time ago, a lot of years back. He was a deacon. Um, and then they eventually opened up a church in Santa Clarita, California. So Elder Choi left to Santa Clarita, California in like 2000, I think 2011, 2012. But he left because he was very bad. He was very wicked. He was rude to the members. Um, so in 2021, Elder Choi came back to Sunland, and when he came back, like so many members transferred out of there, maybe like good 15, 16 members transferred out of there. They didn't want to be around him. Um, and when he came back like a little dog with the tail between his legs. He came back real nice, real sweet, real humble. But the thing about Elder Choi is that he was very corrupt, man. Um, so there was an incident that happened. This is all public information. This is stuff that you yourself can research. Members who are currently in the church can research. Members who are outside of the church, you're welcome to. There was a brother who was actually arrested for sexually molesting little girls in the church. So
Wow.
this is how it went down. He happened to sexually molest these little sisters in Santa Clarita. And I know it happened there because one of the dads of one of the little girls actually told me. He told me this himself. And then he showed me the report. He showed me the police report. So in 2021, the LA County Sheriff comes and they arrest his brother while I'm in Sunland. At that time, the overseer, like I said, was Elder Choi, but Elder Choi was covering this brother,
Wow.
and so were other leaders. By the law, by the state of California, if you have a sex offender in your church, if you're in a synagogue or a church or whatever it is or a school, you have to report that this guy is a sex offender.
Yeah.
So this brother, actually, he would come up to me and he would touch me, and he would say, "Brother, you're so sweet, you're so handsome." And I thought to myself, like, "Hey, this brother is very kind, man. He's got the love of a mother. He's very sweet." But this brother is always by himself. He's always alone. You know, and I always wonder why he was always by himself. He was always alone. He would drink coffee and then he would take off home. But he was a member for a very, very long time. Actually, he's a brother of a title holder, who is in Riverside. I won't say his name, um, but yeah, that happened in 2021. He came, he got
Wow.
arrested, and Elder Choi knew. All the leaders in Sunland knew. Um, and then Pastor Enoch, who happens to be the a pastor here of Reseda, he actually came and he briefed us about it. He had a meeting and he briefed us about the whole situation. He said we're complying with the authorities. No, they were not. They weren't. They were not complying with the authorities. Why didn't they bring him up years ago? Why didn't they kick him out years ago when he had
Yeah.
he sexually molested more than four girls, little
Wow.
girls, and one of the incidents happened to be in Zion. It happened to be close to the sisters' restroom in Santa Clarita, Zion. So Pastor Enoch came. He told us about it. He said, the cops are investigating right now, and we're doing everything we can to help them out. And no, no, they were not, man. They were not. They were hiding this brother, and and that's one of the things that made me open my eyes a little bit more, because I'm like, this is just one incident, but there's many more that have occurred in different states, different parts of the country where things happen, but they do it for the sole purpose because that member was giving great tithes. He was getting good offerings, you know. So at that point, Elder Troy was just happy. He was just kind of was like, yeah, brother, just follow me and I'll protect you. But what ended
Yeah.
up happening was that Elder Troy in Sunland, he began to manipulate the attendance. So the church, had gone down in attendance, and he began to put everyone as like a 16 timer. 16 timers are people who come full time, because there's one service for third day and three services for Sabbath. So 4 out of the week times 4 weeks, 16 timer. So he began to put everyone down as like full time gospel workers, full time this, full time that. Everyone's coming to church. Our church attendance increased from like 300 to like 450 in like 1 month.
Wow.
And I know this because my branch, he would brief me on everything. He would tell me everything that would happen in the church. But here's the thing: leaders in Sunman, they were all scared to speak out. They were all scared to go against Elder Choi. Um, every title holder in Sunland and every leader in Sunland, unit leader, group leader, they all knew about this, and they were all scared. They were all scared. They didn't want to report him. They were just like, what if I report him and I get my title taken away? What if I report him and I get. Their whole mentality was like, how can I keep my title? I don't want to lose my title.
Yeah.
It's sad, because they're the ones who swear to defend the truth, right? They're the ones who swear to defend the church,
Yeah.
from all these things. And here they are being scared of this elder because this elder's doing this. So eventually, when that elder left, right? I was also told, I didn't experience it myself, but I was told that he happened to steal money from the church.
Yeah.
So he stole money from the church. Money came up short, and I remember at that time in Sunland they were asking for an offering. Oh, brothers, we need to bring in offerings because, when Elder Troy was here, he did some real bad things, and now we're short on money, and they're always short on money. They never have
Yeah.
money. They want to fix the parking lot, they don't have money. They want to fix something else, they don't have money. They want to buy new dishes for the church, cups to drink water, they don't have money. Everything that's in the church is brought and it's offered by the members.
Yeah.
So that happened. Elder Troy, he ended up getting transferred, right. He ended up getting kicked out of the church. Last time I heard, he was down in Guatemala. Um,
Wow.
this was told to me by a member who actually saw him down there, which is kind of interesting. This
Yeah.
member was on vacation and happened to bump into him down there, and was like, "Hello, Troy. Like, how you been?" And he was kind of trying to brush that person off, like, "Oh, I've been good. Thanks to Father, Mother." But no, he got his title taken away. He got his pastoral. He was pastoral staff. He got stripped of everything. He was basically just a brother now. So that's the last thing I heard about Elder Troy. And
Wow.
also, yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah, man, that's a wild story, but unfortunately, I'm not too surprised because again, this is in these kind of places like this, those kind of things happen, and but yeah, it's definitely it's upsetting, that they let that go on, and it makes you think like about the members that are in there and the children, and that they're being put in danger, and um, how they cover one another up, for the wrong purposes, Um, but yeah, Santi, go ahead and keep continue with your story, man. Like how so I know I asked you what was one of the things that made you realize the WMSCOG wasn't who they said they were, but like after hearing your story, I could definitely see how that would make you open your eyes. But what would you say was the final nail in the coffin that made you like wake up and be like, man, this isn't where I need to be?
The straw that broke the camel's back, man. The straw that broke the camel's back. I'll go into the story at a later time, but in 2023, um, I we had a very beautiful. I happened to become a father, so I became a father while I was in the cult, and it's the most.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's one of the most beautiful things that ever happened to me in my life. You know, and I remember one time, man, we kept service, and at this time we were in Silmar Zion. We were in Silmar Zion, and my little boy, he was like 4 months old, and at one time he got very sick. He got very sick, and we still took him like that, because no matter how sick kids are, what's going on in your life, you gotta go to Zion. But at this time in my life of faith, I was already looking for a way out. I was like, man, I'm done. This is probably my last year. And we show up for the Sabbath, and my son was sick. And I noticed that my son, he couldn't really breathe right. He was having breathing problems, and then he got real purple. And I told his mother, I was like, we gotta take him to the hospital. We gotta take him to the ER. Like, I don't think he's doing well. My son was very purple. So I told his mother, I'm like, we gotta go. And then she's like, what are we gonna tell the branch manager? The I won't say his name, but he's a deacon. And I told his deacon, I'm like, Deacon, my son's not doing well. I gotta take him to the doctor. And he kind of like uh was like, do what you gotta do, do what you gotta do. And I'm like, that's it, like, I was like, man, I'm out of here. I got my son. I rushed him down to the hospital. He had a little, he had like a little cold. He had like a little flu. Um, but and then I called him and I'm like, I'm like, Deacon, where do I keep service? And he's like, I don't know, brother. He's like, you tell me. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to miss service. He's like, I'll call you back. And then he calls me back and he says, brother, you can do whatever you want. He says, according to your faith and according to your situation, do whatever you want. And I remember that was the point in time where I was like, man, I myself was in the cult and I saw a lot of bad things. But now that I have my son in here, now that I'm an actual father, like, I do not want to have my son in this place anymore. You know, I cannot see my son going through any of these things. And I did experience kids being mistreated. I did experience kids being hit. I did experience a lot of people mistreating members' children, and I never said anything. You know, I
Yeah.
never said anything because at that time I had the faith where I just saw I saw something, I didn't talk about it. Because it wasn't none of my business. And even if you try to get in, if you see a member having a problem in the church, like, you can't get involved. You know, they don't
Yeah.
allow you to, because they'll tell you, oh brother, he's just gonna drag you down. This brother's going through some stuff. Like, leave him alone. He's not doing so good. When you're at your worst, and that's the thing, man. You know, a lot of people, when they're in the cult, a lot of members, because we have in the church, there's so much youth, like there's so many young adults, that a lot of young adults don't experience things that we do. I didn't experience things that I experienced when I was in my early 20s that I experience now. A lot of people, they live with their parents, they pay no rent, like they're good. They just go to Zion and they just go to church and they preach and they come home, nothing's wrong. But now as you get older, you got a mortgage, you got your bills, you got a car payment, and all that adds up when you start to be in the church. So when that happened with my son, I was like, man, I'm done. I told my son's mother at that time, this is our last year here, man. This is the kind of attitude that these people have. This is the way that they want to treat my son. Like, man, this is not a place of God, man. You know, this is not a place of
Yeah.
God.
And I just, hearing you say that, man, it kind of makes me angry because, it reminds me of just, so many similar experiences that I've heard from other members, and how they're so inconsiderate of members' feelings and family and loved ones. And like, like you said, you felt it more when you witnessed it firsthand to yourself, like the way that they treated that situation, man. And it's horrible. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of like what you were saying, how you didn't miss a service, and then you asked to take your son to go to the hospital, and you're expecting, these people, they're supposed to be family, right?
Hmm.
They're supposed to be more of your family than your actual family. And
Hmm.
yet when they're supposedly one of their family members, your actual family, your son is sick, the the lack of consideration, and empathy is just wild to me. And just, like, do what you got to do. Like, man, that's crazy to me, and but it just speaks volumes. I think it speaks volumes. And man, I'm glad, I'm so happy that you shared that story, but I'm even more happy that you're out now, man. And I want to thank you again for coming on here and sharing your story, man. And also wanted to ask you something. Is there any advice that you would want to give to, like, current members who might be watching this, right? Or even maybe not now, but in the future, right? Or any advice to anyone that has anything to do with the World Mission Society in general?
Members who are watching now and who are thinking about leaving, um, I would say leave. The way that you could leave, and I'll explain how I left, is I didn't contact nobody. I blocked my branches, I cut off everybody, I changed my phone number, and I just left. You know, I would say leave. Because you don't want. It's 7 years of my life that I used to say maybe when I left, oh, 7 years that I learned a lot of stuff. No, 7 years of my life that I wasted,
Yeah.
because those years I'll never get back. Those years not spending with my mother, I'll never get back. Those years spending with my family members, I remember after when I left in 2020 24, this is my last service ever, March 2nd, 2024. My last service
Yeah.
ever. Um, I happened to visit my family members who live in Northern California, and they saw me and they were surprised. And they're like, "What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be at church?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'm kind of gone." But it's crazy because those are the very first people who took me in and embraced me, even though I had cut them off. Even though I had forgotten about them, I never talked to them. I just ignored them like they're nobody. Those were the first people who actually embraced me. And I want to say to members who are in the church right now and we're thinking about leaving, and me and members who plan to stay, man, I hope that all of you leave, because your life here in this church is very expendable. You're worth nothing in the church. I got to a point where I put up $8,000 to 9,000 to help establish this house church, to pay rent for 2 whole years out of my pockets, to being in debt for more than $25,000, to being looked at as trash, not missing a single service, to being told, "Oh, you know what? That member didn't really have faith."
Or
Like
Judas or the devil,
Judas, the
demons.
devil, yeah. Like this member, actually he wasn't so good when he was in the cult. But here I am putting every single moment of my life into this cult, man. I would say leave, take off, don't be scared. I mean,
Yeah.
I ever since I left, man, um, my son's mother, she has been able to get a job, um, in law enforcement. I have been able to get a federal job also. I'm not a police officer, but I do work closely by them. I've done well for myself after I left the cult. I didn't get cancer. I haven't died. I'm not out here drinking, smoking, doing anything bad like they say that people are gonna go do, or we're just, we're regular human beings. I
Right.
would say people who are there, just take off, man. If you want to leave, take off. The only one stopping you from all that is you.
Yeah.
Because even if we were to go into scripture, right, and we could do that at a later time, right? For part two, we go into scripture. These people, they don't play fair, man. You know, they twist the Bible so much. They twist the Bible so much that when you get out of there, it's unfortunate for a lot of people. A lot of people become atheists.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to believe in God anymore. And it's very sad, because the whole purpose by us thinking we were going to church was to worship our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you
Yeah.
know? And even by saying Jesus Christ, people are like, "Oh my goodness, Jesus."
Yeah.
It's like members who are watching this right now, they're gonna be like, "Oh wow, he's gone." No, look at the
Yeah.
Bible. Jesus Christ, man, he's the one who came to give us eternal life.
Yeah.
But I invite you guys, members who are in the church, to search and actually see the original 26 books of Ansang Hong that he wrote. They're there. You can find them. Oh,
Yeah.
you're bringing out the special weapon, huh? Oh
Yeah,
man,
man. Yeah. So I think that everything that you said is very good, man. And I also want to take this opportunity to give a shout out and make some plugs some of the members who are also doing work behind the
Yeah.
scenes to spread awareness. So just kind of want to share some of the platforms for those members, like you were saying. The ones who it's better to just leave now, right? They're gonna try to scare you. They're gonna try to guilt trip you and try to make you fear that you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna get cancer, you're gonna die in a car accident, you're gonna no, I guarantee, like, so I obviously we can't guarantee anything, right? But we're
Mhm.
not God. But the thing is, I've been talking to so many people all over the world, right? So many people are leaving and they're living life now. They're enjoying their families. They're doing whatever path you decide to take, whether you believe in God, you want to take a break from it for a while, it's fine. But the one thing you want to do first, get out of there and get informed, right?
Yeah.
Educate yourself on the origins of this cult. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me. And also, there's going to be a lot more content that I'm going to be dropping soon, but there's so many great resources out there now. There's Great Light Studios, right? There's the examining the WMSCOG.com, which is the best website you can go to get all the information for the cult, right? And then there's also the Playing in Traffic podcast, which is also on YouTube, which is very, very good. There's a lot of good stuff on there, a lot of good interviews. And then also now there's Finding the Alternative, right? So many good resources out there that you can check out and get informed, and again, I've always said this even in my videos with Jordan on Great Light Studios. Truth is not afraid to be investigated. Only a lie is, right? And so if they're not hiding anything, then you should have no problem doing your research. The only people that would not want you to do research are people that are not telling you the full truth. And I've done a lot of investigation. I have a lot of Ansan Hong's original books. I know a lot of the church history. There's a lot of things that I will be revealing on this YouTube channel pretty soon, so stay tuned. I'm very excited for that. But there's definitely a lot of great resources, and you owe it to yourself to investigate this, right? Investigate and get down to the nitty gritty. Find out the true origins of the World Mission Society Church of God, because if you devote so much time to this place and you've decided to give your entire life and your family, then it's worth, right? It's worth the time to make sure that you're in the right place for you and your family. um
Absolutely.
yeah. uh
Absolutely.
Santi, I want to thank you again, man, for joining us on the first episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG. Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap this up?
Uh, I would like to say this, man. To a lot of the former members who are still, sorry, to a lot of the current members who are still in there, um, who are real close to me, I would like to say that I love them, man. Because no one, they're just saying, right? There's no such thing as a bad student, only a bad teacher. And I feel like a lot of us had a lot of bad teachers in that cult, and we will go, if you allow me to also, and I know you yourself, Edgar, will put out a lot more content out there, but let's get biblical with it, let's go ahead
Yeah,
and let's break down the cult, because
yeah,
I know right here in this video that we did, we didn't do much of it, but let's do it.
yeah,
Let's go ahead and break it down. The Passover, the Sabbath. I know a lot of members who current members who are gonna watch this video. They're gonna say, "Well, what church is it going to now?" We'll
yeah,
explain that. We'll
yeah,
explain where we are, but I want you guys to educate yourselves. Put Heavenly Mother to the side. Put
yeah,
Ansang Home to the side, and look at the actual history of the World Mission Society Church of God and when it started.
yeah,
Why don't they use the Black Book anymore? Because they stole all these teachings from all these different churches. It's like the World Mission Society Church of God is like a Frankenstein.
yeah,
It was put together by all these pieces. Like it's not, if it's sad to say, but if you think that, you know, I have nothing against Ansang Hong, because when you look at the history of the World Mission Society Church of God, Like if Ansang Hong was living today and he were to see the church for what it is right now, he were to be disgusted, right? And
Yeah.
and the church that he established, right, still exists, and it's not the World Mission Society Church of God. You know, that's what we're trying to tell you guys. You know, that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to prove. And Edgar will, and if he allows me to jump in also,
Yeah.
you know, I'll be more than willing to help. But I want to say that I love you guys, and I hope that a lot of you actually do leave. And I got more stories out there. I didn't put all my stories. I probably put out maybe like 1% of my stories that I have. So
Yeah.
we'll put more out there, man. But I want to take this time to thank not only yourself, because you're the only you're the first person that I reached out to when I left. And you recently you just sent me a screenshot of the email that I sent you, and I got a little emotional, man, because at that time in my life, leaving the cult is hard. And I want to tell those members who are leaving and who plan to leave, if you need professional help, you are more than welcome to go out there and ask for that mental help. Because
Yes.
when I left the church, I felt like I was running from the police, man. I felt like they were on a manhunt for me. They were looking for me. They were searching for me. You know, like the cult, like the members were asking where I was at. If I was coming, like it just felt super uncomfortable. You know, search for
Yeah.
help. Ask. Um, I don't know if you'll put your email or you'll put something
Yeah.
down here below, so that they can reach out and actually, if you genuinely want to leave and you don't know how to leave, there's a safe haven for you, man. There's a safe place for you. You
Yeah.
know, your life, if you have children in this church, you know, you're you already lived your life. If you're 30 or you're 40 years old, you already lived your life. Don't do this to your children, man. You know, don't bring your kids in here. Don't cut
Mm.
off your children's dreams. You know, life goes
Yeah.
on when you leave the call, and that's what people don't know, that life goes on. When I left the call, I was like, man, now I can work Saturdays, or now I can do this on Saturday. You know, and we'll talk about the Sabbath. We'll explain a little bit more. Yeah, I know you will for sure go in on the Sabbath,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I also want to thank a lot of people who have been at the front lines of helping people leave.
Yeah.
Edgar, yourself, Michelle Cologne. You
Yes.
know, Michelle Cologne, man. Oh,
Yeah.
man, she's something else, man. She has a lot of cojones, man. She has more cojones than a man. Like Michelle Colon. I hope you watch this,
Yeah.
man. This woman, she's put her whole life into. She's like she sacrificed herself the past decade fighting
Yeah.
these people, man, because they just basically ruined her life. But she don't give up, man. She's out there
Yeah.
fighting back. You
Yeah.
know, Anthony
Yeah.
Jordan of Great Light Studios, Esperanza, Kelly, like all you great people out there Jordan Young, actually, Jordan Young. I told him I was gonna give him a shout out.
Yeah.
Jordan Young, I hope me and him could get on a video, because we actually, me and him spoke not too long ago, and we shared a lot of similar stories that we have, because
Yeah.
he's from Reseda, I'm from Sunland,
Mm.
and we're like literally 15 minutes away, so we know a lot of the same people from the cult. So
Yeah.
it'd be great to have him on here also. But
I'd love to have Jordan Young on here. Maybe
yeah,
we could do some collaboration with you and Jordan in the
yeah,
future. That'd be great.
yeah, all those amazing beautiful people, man, who came out the church, man. You know, keep doing your thing, man, and nothing's gonna stop us now, man. You know, nothing's gonna stop us now. I hope to also help people. Like I will say this: there is people who have reached out to me from Sunland. There are people who reached out to me from different locations who are planning to leave, who want to leave. They're scared though. We're here for you, man. You know, we're here for you, and we're gonna continue to make these videos, and we're gonna break down these cults, and we're gonna break it down, because people need to get
Yeah.
out there, man. Get on with your life, man. This is
For
not the
sure.
church of God. This is not the church of God. This is an organization that terrorizes people, man.
Yeah.
You know, they're all about money. They're all about, recently the wildfires here in California, right? You asked me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just saw a video that was sent to me yesterday by another former member, and I was looking at it and I said, how sad, because they were doing, I don't know what they were doing, like a food drive, or I don't know what they're donating paper, toilet paper, Gatorades, waters in Riverside. You know, the Riverside is an hour and like 45 minutes, almost 2 hours away from the fires.
Yeah.
Why are they donating toilet paper to these people? These people don't even have toilets.
Yeah.
These people don't even have a
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean this in no way, shape, or form in a bad way, but the homes that burned down in Altadena and the homes that burned down in Palisades, these are people who are very, 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 very wealthy, like wealthy beyond belief. So the World Mission Society Church of God doesn't do this for an act of kindness. They do it because they find any way, shape, or form to make themselves go public. If you guys wanted to help people, why don't you help people who are actually in the streets,
Yeah.
who are actually homeless? Why don't you go to a homeless shelter, people who are disabled? Oh, but
Yeah.
they don't allow that. They don't allow homeless people. They don't really want people who are disabled. If you don't have a car, oh man, they don't want you, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the things they always taught us. So I'll say this, man. Take off, leave. Do your
Yeah.
research, find out when the church started. Don't even ask your branch manager. Don't even ask your leader. Don't even ask. Just the first step is take off. If you're not
Yeah.
comfortable there, take off. Because like I said from the beginning, read the first 10 chapters of the book of Matthew, and you're gonna come to understand and see that this is not the church that Jesus Christ himself established. It
Yeah.
is far from it. It is really far from it, you know?
Yeah.
But
That yeah, once again, I'm just so thankful for you to be here, and I'm looking forward, for all the members that I know are gonna be benefited from listening to your story, Santi. And I just want to encourage everyone else, those who enjoyed this conversation, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That will help us push these videos out. And until next time, I want to thank you guys again for watching the content, and you guys have a blessed day.